with about a 100-page, 5-year plan for homelessness. It has some good points. Most of it, however, is pretty vague. It talks about improving or strengthening. It doesn't set very many specific targets that will hold people accountable. But one of the areas that is really striking by its omission is the issue of the by name list. And you referenced that, Dr. Colletti. Tell us about what the by name list is and why so many communities are embracing this instead of just counting once a year.
A by name list is where it's primarily put together by your street outreach workers and people who are going out there day after day, and they're actually putting people into an app, an electronic app, and where the data is entered for that person and updated every time they encounter that person. The goal here is to have as close to real-time data as possible for each and every person who is homeless, say, in the city of Pasadena. That's the goal of a by name list, is to try to have as close to real-time data, real-time information about each and every person who is homeless. And there are some jurisdictions that are now tying their by name list into GIS systems. I say GIS so often I forget Geographic Information Systems, right? And so that all of a sudden, right, so if we had a by name list right now and we were prepared, we can say, okay, through GIS, let's put it on the wall, let's wall map it right now. Let's see who is homeless in Pasadena, where they're at, where they're located. The blue dots are women, the red dots are men, the yellow dots are youth, whatever, and you'd be able to do that through a by name list. And I think that once, and this is kind of really jumping ahead, that when AI gets integrated into a by name list, I think we're going to go to a couple new places that we've never been before, to where the by name list can be this very valuable source of information, real-time information.
And we have some of that. It's not to say that does not exist, but it does not exist in the comprehensive form, so that it's shared by everyone who touches the unhoused population. And most importantly, we're not utilizing that data in a comprehensive way to get the right help to the right people at the right time. And so, and I know Union Station contracts some of those outreach teams. How could we improve the efficiency of the outreach and building clear data that we can utilize to get people off the streets?
I don't know if I can say too much, other than to say it's coming and hasn't been announced yet, so it's a sneak preview. It's something we're actually working on, and I believe that this is something, I totally agree, a by name list. It's about how do we bring the entire community together. And we've got outreach workers. I know we've got some of our colleagues from Friends of Deed here tonight doing amazing work along with us, other agencies that are out there. But we're not gonna solve this issue until the entire community comes together. And every part of the community comes together around this issue. We have, the point in time count says we have about 560 people. That's on any given one night. There are more during the year in Pasadena, but those are doable numbers. We actually could solve homelessness in Pasadena I don't think it would take 5 years if we really got the community behind it. I think that we need to believe as a community and come together to say, let's be the first community in Los Angeles County that figures this out and does it. And we can do it. We're putting together a dashboard, we're putting together a by name list, we're gonna bring in all our colleagues, but we also need community members to come alongside with us and say, we can do this. It requires housing, it requires services, and it also requires that people not stand in the way, because frankly, it's we don't want that in our neighborhood. And I think what you said earlier about these are our people. The people that are here experiencing homelessness in Pasadena are from Pasadena, and we need to get them housed. So what you're talking about with the by name list, hold on, shortly, new year, gonna be hearing some more stuff. But I do ask everybody here and your friends and neighbors and colleagues, come alongside us, because we can do it. We really can.
Amara, again, the part of the challenge is we have lots of different nonprofits, lots of different programs, lots of faith-based. What's the status of pulling all that together so that it's seamless and more efficient at actually getting solutions rather than people sort of bouncing from one program to the next?
Well, I appreciate what Anne's saying in getting the entire community together, and faith communities definitely have to be a part of that because they are the sources of shower programs and food programs and prevention programs, places where people are going on a consistent basis that can feed into the system of not only locating people, but enhancing the system that is funded by the government. And I think that's an important piece for faith communities. So how can we strategize and make this more efficient? I think we have to eliminate silos. And one of the things that I'm doing across the county is gathering faith communities in each region. And so you have a food program, I have a food program. Let's get together and talk about who is part of this food program, and how can we then take the information that we're learning from those people as we're building trust, as we build trust around meals, we build trust around showers. These are all tools that we use to engage with people as we're providing services. How can that enhance what Union Station is doing? And so that it's not a separate instance, that we're all moving together in the same direction. I think we need a greater vision that incorporates everybody in the city. I think about Lake Avenue's, when I was at Lake Avenue, we had a prevention program that for years, I don't know that anyone knew the extent of the prevention that was happening on a private basis via benevolence. It was $250,000 a year in benevolence funds to keep people in their homes. Without that knowledge or that streamlined, without that knowledge being streamlined into a main system, we're duplicating efforts, right? One of the things we formed during the pandemic, and Anne mentioned some of our colleagues, is a little trifecta. Everyone's doing homelessness prevention. Let's talk about how we can best serve the people who are coming to us so that they're not bouncing around to different programs. We're actually sharing information. So I think a lot more information sharing, a lot of lateral connection, because a lot of times we're looking for the government to come and say, do this, when relationally we know what to do, we're already doing it. We fill in the gaps already. So it's about making a strategy of all the ways we've kind of been filling in the gaps and making that no longer a filling in the gaps, but like the actual plan. That every single nonprofit, we know how they're touching that person. Every single faith community that has a program that touches homelessness, we know how it's affecting that person, and that's counted within the information. And just one practical way that we're doing that across the county is having service providers hire, and this was a joint effort between LASA and Homelessness Initiative, the county program, is to have a faith-based regional coordinator that is syncing up what faith communities are doing across the county. And within their region, they're syncing up the faith communities in their region to, again, information share and add to what the mainline system is doing. I think it's really important that we share information.
Lieutenant, could you describe the ComStat approach we took to bring the bus drivers, and the public works people, and the library people, and the police, and the fire, and the nonprofits, and the outreach teams together to work on this?
So in Santa Monica, we have a really great program where we worked across all the departments in the city in order to address specific problems. And in Santa Monica, I was saying earlier, our two main problems are traffic and homelessness. So our homeless stat group brought together representatives from basically the middle of each of the departments. Those of us who were, tied in enough with the goings on our day-to-day organization, but we were high up enough in the organization that we could make some decisions on behalf of our department. And we would come together at first on a bi-weekly basis and then on a monthly basis in order to create projects together. And, you know, it was one of those things where the police were constantly doing that. We're always trying to think of projects that we can do, you know, how are we gonna address this? Well, what are we gonna do about it? How are we gonna get the resources? But we'd never been able to go to other departments and say, well, what do you wanna bring to the table? Because we were all being affected by it. And we came up with all kinds of, you know, great stuff. We had a lot of work that the police department did with public works, as you might imagine, trying to get things kind of, you know, cleaned up and squared away. But one of the more interesting collaborations that came out of that, and the only reason why it happened was because we had this working group, was with our bus drivers. I don't really, you know, again, don't really think too much about the ins and outs of or the day-to-day life of a bus driver. But when you think about it, they're kind of sitting ducks when they're on that bus, but they're also trained observers. And they spend a lot of time carrying around a lot of the same people as they're traveling along their route, and they will get to know some of their regular passengers that are riding the bus. And a lot of them had really low morale because they were feeling like they couldn't do anything to help some of the more vulnerable members of our community, and primarily seniors, but also our homeless community. So when we brought it up in Homelessness, our Big Blue Bus folks were like, we want to do something. Like, we really need to do something to be able to engage our bus drivers, because again, much like police officers, they have a lot of day-to-day interactions with our homeless community. And so what we did was put together a video that could be shown, you know, around to all the different drivers. There's hundreds of them in Big Blue Bus, about how to engage with their homeless passengers, and then we gave them resources that they could hand out for a shelter, for a drop-in center, along their routes, and they could actually help them get to the places they need to get to in order to take advantage to some of the services, because they were their transportation. And it was really great. They loved it. They absolutely loved it. And even when we ended that official program, they kept doing it, and they still provide those resources on the bus. I think now they do it by QR code, because, you know, that's how we work. No more pamphlets, but you know, they're still running that program, because again, it gave their drivers something that they could do. It was really fantastic.